Hello, Kindred Longevity Lifestyle Designers. This is Zach here with secretsoflongevity.com, and this is part 2 of how to create a conscious relationship in your life with an intimate partner. And in the first part, I discussed some of the work of David Deida, as well as other people that speak on this topic, of the idea that there's 3 stages or 3 levels of so-called evolution that we can take on the path of getting to an ideal relationship, or a relationship that works. And this isn't a rigid, dogmatic way of saying this is the only type of relationship that will work, because clearly people do last in a variety of different styles. They take on different roles in relationships, but this is a model that has helped many people, and you really have to check out his work, not just based on what you hear in these 2-part series, to find out if you think this might help you. It personally has really altered and shifted the way I approach my own relationship that I'm currently in, and it's really enhanced it for the better. And so those 3 stages that David Deida talks about, and again, if you want to watch that 12-part series that is free online on YouTube, it's a DVD of his that has been put online. You can check out that link below, and I highly recommend it. Now, the 3 stages are stage 1, which was sort of like the traditional marriage type scenario, where perhaps some people associate with a religious overtone, but this was just many relationships in the past, sort of the stereotypical male and female, but very male and very feminine, 2 different people that are coming together. And because there's that polarity between the yin and the yang, there's an attractive force, because they're 2 opposite poles that come together. Now, some of the imbalanced qualities that can creep into a stage 1 type of relationship, or that are always present there, are going to be things like an attempt to own that other person, because they're your polar opposite and you need them in your life to fulfill that part of you that's lacking that quality. So it's almost as if each person has a leash on the other person, and they're going to use language that signifies they're trying to own the other person. So they're saying, that's my man, or that's my woman. And this has an unhealthy attachment to it. Even if it's mutual, it can be unhealthy. Even if the relationship does last for a while, it's going to be causing all sorts of internal struggles. Now, another major problem you see in these stage 1 relationships is a lack of completely understanding the opposite, polar opposite. So if you were, for instance, a male that was very characteristic, macho, jerk type of male, you're going to have trouble understanding the emotional ups and downs of a normal feminine energy, or the yin, which is associated with water. The masculine, which could be associated with fire, is very rigid and stoic, you could say, when taken to excess. And that's going to lead to a lack of understanding of that quality, because it's completely lacking in itself, because that person has not explored that quality in themselves. And on the flip side, if you're very feminine, regardless of your actual gender, so this could apply to males or females for both energies that I'm talking about, but if you're very feminine and you've had always been that way, and you had never explored the masculine qualities inherent in your being, or taken them on and balanced them in accordance with your feminine qualities that seem to overwhelm your being, you're going to not understand when someone is driven. You're not going to understand when you see that masculine energy that can be almost too dominant in some cases. And dominance isn't a bad thing, but if you're not used to it, it can be frightening if you're too feminine. Now, moving on to stage 2, the benefits are that both of these people, if they're in a relationship, they have a balance of both masculine and feminine in them. However, there's no polarity, no one's really taking lead. And this can lead to things like someone saying, what do you want to do tonight? And then the other person says, I don't know, what do you want to do tonight? And the other person's like, I don't know, what do you want to do? So if you know what I'm saying, if you've ever been caught in that situation, you don't really want to put too much of a foot forward to lead, but you don't want to be too submissive. And this is a sign of the stage 2 relationship and some of the problems that can occur from it. Now, of course, these people have brought balance in and of themselves, and if they happen to eventually part ways, which generally I believe is a major part of the high divorce rates and problems in relationships today that you see in our culture, that's just because everyone's moving into this stage where there's a lot of inner growth, that people are exploring both these qualities in themselves, which is great. However, when it comes to a relationship, there needs to be that polarization, which I talked about. And going on to step 3, or stage 3, is accepting that taking on a dynamic for the sake of bringing in the polarized energy that creates attraction can be beneficial. And because you've developed both those qualities in yourself, you can trust yourself and your partner enough to allow that to happen without fear coming in to make it difficult, and you can also know when to stop when you've taken it too far. And some people might relate this to sort of like an S&M type of mentality, and it's really quite different. In my view, there's a lot of unhealthy practices when it comes to inflicting pain or scarring or bruising or making someone else bleed. Some people will get pleasure out of that. I would strongly, even though this is politically incorrect to say, I'd say that's unhealthy. And if you're someone that engages in that, that's watching this, you really have to ask yourself if it's healthy to be engaging in this, if it's showing results of an unhealthy results in your body, is it actually healthy to get this out, so to speak? Because I've spoken with many people that engage in these activities, and yes, they get off in terms of the extreme polarity that takes place between someone that's intentionally inflicting harm on another when the other person's allowing that to happen. However, these people often have underlying issues that from childhood trauma or even teenager or adulthood trauma that has resulted in them reenacting that trauma over and over again. But if anything, it drives that trauma deeper into their being. It doesn't clear it. It doesn't heal it in any way, because you simply don't see native tribes engaging in this, and you don't see animals engaging in BDSM. So what I'm talking about is strictly taking on the roles you do see in nature, which is polarity. If you look at any animals in the wild that are mating, there is polarity. Now stereotypically, it's been men that take on the masculine or dominant role, and it's females that take on this passive or submissive role. However, according to David Deida's work, it can be switched around if it's so needed or if it's desired. And it works in homosexual relationships as well, and you do see this. And again, I'm not stereotyping or making blanket statements, but there is a tendency to see anyone, you can see in the relationship who's wearing the pants, so to speak, and who's sort of following. And you can also hear this in people's language today. If you meet a couple for the first time, it's pretty quick that you learn who's wearing the pants in the relationship. Now what I'm suggesting is if you want the relationship to continually evolve, become deeper, more heart-centered, and have more spark, you need to increase the pants and increase the dress or the passive role. So the more you increase the polarity, the more attraction there is. And this is what generates that intense feelings of love when people first meet. But it's possible to recreate this and continually get it going in a relationship. Now, what can leading and following look like? That's better language than using dominance and submission, because people associate negativity with those words, dominance and submission. But leading and following, or pilot and co-pilot, is the roles that we could take on in a relationship to increase this polarity. So what this could look like is whoever's taking on the masculine role would be a leader in the sense that they are making decisions for the relationship, where it's going, what they're doing, where they're going to live, how much money is spent here, how much money is spent there. And then the person that is taking on the caregiver or following role, they're doing so willingly, first of all. So both parties are willingly going into these roles and enjoying it, and they're getting the polarity from it, so it is a pleasurable thing. It's not an attempt for one person to control the other. It's actually a mutual understanding that is very enjoyable. So the person following is doing the nurturing of themselves, and the other person, they're the one bringing in the beauty and the decorative aspects of the relationship. I mean, going back to that stage 1 relationship, we see the stereotypical housewife doing the decorating of the house, making the meals, going out doing the shopping, etc. And it's the masculine figure that is, driving the car, bringing the largest portion of the income, deciding where they're going to live and how they're going to live and what lifestyle they take on. And perhaps at this point you're thinking, what is Zach talking about? This really has nothing to do with longevity or health. This is just his personal opinion about his lifestyle. But I definitely think you should check out that link below. Again, this is controversial for some people, but just having explored it for quite some time now, I have to say it is the best thing I've ever incorporated into my own relationship, and for that reason, I can see how it can benefit the health and longevity. And specifically, to briefly just talk about the longevity cultures around the world, they predominantly do operate in the stage 1 relationship because they're more agricultural, and that's the stage that they were living at and that most of the world was living at that time. And they have better marriage rates, they have lifelong partners, and to me that makes a lot of sense for bringing about better health overall. So yes, keep an open mind, take care, and embrace life without limits.